Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with legendary jazz drummer and educator Michael Carvin. Over the course of our conversation, he spoke about how his father taught him the greatest lessons in life, like waiting to learn how to play the drums properly before doing it, and it paid off. By the age of 12, he was playing professionally, winning 5 consecutive Texas Rudimentary Championships, then moving on to be the staff drummer for Motown Records, playing with Freddie Hubbard, and gigging with the finest cats in jazz on the planet, like Dizzy Gillespie, Dexter Gordon, Jacquet McLean, Hank Jones, Illinois Jacquet, Pharoah Sanders, Bobby Hutcherson, James Moody, Hampton Hawes, and so many others, and he has great stories about all of them. There is plenty of wisdom and laughter that he imparted, and this is a man that really loves jazz and being alive. So please, enjoy this interview, my friend.
Thank you very much for taking some time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to do it, believe me.
Right on. So I'm going to go ahead and hop in here, and I'm going to ask you, first of all, what has been going on with you lately?
Well, we just received, in November, we received 4 stars from Downbeat Magazine for our new record, Flash Forward, on Motown Records. Yeah. And it's also all going to Michael Carvin School of Drumming. That's on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday when I'm in town. And we're also finishing up with the documentary, No Excuses.
Is there a release date on that, or?
No, we're shooting for probably spring of 2016.
From what's been going on lately, let's go back to the beginning of your life. And you were born and raised in Houston, Texas, correct?
Yes.
Give me an idea of what it was like to be raised in Houston, and what really fostered a love of jazz for you.
Well, for me, I was born in 1944. So Texas was dealing with, and part of the United States was dealing with segregation. Now, having said that, I never experienced it on a personal level. You know, of course I knew it existed, but see, a lot of people didn't really understand the state of Texas. It was just different. I mean, I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you, because I had all black educators, and that was great to grow up in with a sense of that type of pride, and also know that people had excelled on higher levels maybe than was being advertised or spoke about. My father was a great drummer and an entrepreneur, so I grew up kind of in an entrepreneur family. My mother was a housewife because during that time, one parent could provide, you know, and my father had a new house built. He kept him a new car every year, and my uncle was Don Roby that owned Peacock Records. That's why I started in the studio first instead of the nightclubs. And now, what got me into jazz? Well, I came from the rhythm and blues state, you know, the shuffle and the backbeat coming out of the state of Texas. But a lot of the people, when they would come to Houston because they couldn't stay at the hotels that my parents had, a fairly nice-sized house, the kids, my 2 brothers and I, we would be deposited to our grandparents. And, you know, Illinois Jacquet and a lot of these guys was sleeping in our beds. And Louis Armstrong now, speaking of Illinois Jacquet and Russell Jacquet, that's his brother that played trumpet, and Arnett Cobb, and Eddie Cleanhead Benson is our cousin. Well, the Jacquet brothers went to school. The Jacquet brothers and Arnett Cobb went to school with my father, Phyllis Wheatley High School in Fifth Ward.
Yeah.
And so I always heard it. I formed my first band. I was about 12 years old. And there was Michael Bolivar on alto tenor, Willie Taylor on piano, and Arthur Hunter on bass. And we played pretty much the Horace Silver and the Cannonball Adderley soundbook. As a matter of fact, when that record came out with Cannonball Adderley, Nancy Wilson, that first record would Save Your Love for Me and Would It Be Like Sleeping in the Palm of Your Hand, Never Ever Will I Marry, and all of that. We played that whole book. We was playing that book when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, but see, none of the jazz guys came through because of the laws that was really enforced by the Texas Rangers and the Baptist Church, because Texas for a while was a dry state.
Yeah.
And even when I left Texas in '63, you still could not buy a drink over the bar. It was bring your own brown bag, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it was great though, man. I mean, like jazz when I was growing up, what they call jazz in Texas was Ray Charles would come through on Christmas Eve or something and do a big Christmas show. And Cannonball was very big in Texas because they played the kind of music that you could dance to.
Yeah.
You know, and Horace Silver was a hit, although he never came through, because Horace Silver played that same kind of music. You could dance to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so that's I had really a great time growing up. I mean, I really did. Yes, I knew segregation and all of that. We could use the language racism, but I never personally or anyone in my immediate family personally experienced it. Of course, we was aware of the tragedy with the three little ones in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the things that was going on in Mississippi and Alabama. That was the guy I came through Kansas once, and I was a cab driver. I was riding with a cab driver, and he said, "Man," he said, "How old are you?" And I think at that time I was about 68, 67 or something. He said, "Where you from?" I said, "Houston, Texas." He said, "Oh yeah." He said, well, what age were you when you started picking cotton?" I said, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, you from Texas, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "And you grew up in segregation?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But there's no cotton in Texas, man."
Yeah.
I'm going, well, it isn't. It's beef, and it's horses, and it's oil, and it's seafood, and it's vegetables. There's no cotton in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, it really isn't. I mean, you know, it's no cotton in Texas.
Yeah, right. That's wild, man. So
it's a whole lot of oil and a whole lot of beef.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
grandpa Ben had an oil well. My grandfather had a oil well, but they kept unfortunate with the laws. He could only pump 3 months out of 90, so it would take so much to even get a bucket full when you let it set like that, and the city would come and put a lock on it. But my grandfather had an oil well.
Wow.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Wow. That's
yeah,
cool.
Did yeah, Ben Hall. So I really had a good time growing up as a kid. I really did.
Yeah, it sounds like music was your tapestry. Did you always dream about growing up and being a musician, or were there other aspirations?
No, I knew what I wanted to be when I was 6 years old.
So
it was very clear to me.
And you obviously took that baton well. When you started at 12, you won the first of 5 consecutive Texas Rudimentary Championships.
Yeah. You know, well, that was fantastic. See, I hated my father from, say, I started playing drums at 6. From 6 years old to 12, Joe, I hated my father. I hated him. I could have killed him because he would leave a set of drums set up in the house in the den because the guys would always come over and have jam sessions and all of that. Hugh Berry, when he would come through Houston, he would come by and jam with my father's band. And my father wouldn't let me play the drums. And I hated him. And he told me, I said, well, Dada, why won't you let me play your drums? He said, Michael, you don't know how to play drums. He said, now you stay on your practice pad, you practice your rudiments, and when you learn how to play drums, I'll buy you a set of drums. But you don't know how to play drums. When I hated him until I won my first rudimental championship. When I won my first rudimental championship, then I thanked him because then and only then did I realize that he had given me the proper discipline that I needed. Had my father listened to me, I probably wouldn't be playing drums now at 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
Because I would have been a banger, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he would have listened to me, I would have never touched a practice pad or studied 26 rudiments. If you let a child start playing a set of drums, how are you going to turn them around and get them to set hours and hours at a practice pad?
Yeah.
instead of right, left, left. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
But luckily, he was the father and I was the child.
That's great.
But I hated him until I was 12 years old, and after that, I thanked him for the rest of my life. As a matter of fact, my father passed away when I was 35, and I was speaking to my beautiful mom about 2 years ago. I just, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Joe, dig this. Jazz at Lincoln, now this is still my father taking care of me. Jazz at Lincoln Center, the guy, Stephen Hawkins, hired me. He said, Mr. Carvin, we would like for you to do the 26 rudiments and be the pilot for our Jazz Academy that they just started about 2 years ago at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And I said, well, great. What would you like for me to do? He said, we would like for you to play and demonstrate in 5 minutes segment the 26 rudiments.
Wow.
So I did it. Dig this. They paid me $10,000 to play the 26 rudiments. Do you believe this? So I called my mother. I say, Mother dear, you never believe this. She say, what did you do this time, Michael? I say, they just paid me $10,000 to play the 26 rudiments. I wish that I was alive. I could think. And is that something?
Wow. That's cool, man. That is totally cool.
Is that something?
Oh, man, that is awesome.
So it still goes back to that initial 26 when I was 6 years old and not allowed to play the drum, because I know for a fact I would have been a banger, because I've seen it over the years. All of the guys who parents gave them stuff, they didn't. I would say 10% actually embellished that early gift.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild, man. That's a great story.
But another thing that I did, I was so mad at my father. I would sit on the floor in front of the set, like my father worked in Jimmy Luster's band and Louis Armstrong band before I was born. So he used to sometime go out on the road with his own band, and he always had 2 or 3 sets of drums. So he left a set of drums set up in the music room. So I wouldn't touch him because I was a good child. But I would sit on the floor in front of the bass drum, and I visualized what I was going to play when my time came to play. And I would take paper and I would draw 3 circles, and I would count the strokes that I would play on the snare drum, on the mounted tom, and on the floor tom, and I would sing the sound. That's why I've always had a sound. I've always had my own sound ever since I started playing drums, because I had this sound in my head what I was going to sound like. And what I did, I actually wrote part of my first concept of a drum book, because I would say like da 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 ba da 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 do do do, and as I would make a sound, I would tap the paper in that circle.
Yeah.
Meaning it'll be maybe 5 strokes on the snare drum and 3 strokes on the mounted tom and 6 strokes on the floor tom, you know, and then I would draw another 3 circles and I would figure out stuff. I used to work on cross sticking in my mind while sitting in front of the set, because I practice. That's what I have my students to do sometimes. Stand in front of the drums and see and visualize what your hands are doing. Because when you sit behind the set a lot, it's too much. It's too big. That was another thing that I learned by not being allowed to bang.
Yeah.
It's amazing how stuff happens, Joe, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing.
It is. It really is. So we go from your beginnings, your drumming, and then you go and you spend your staff drummer at Motown, and you do some television work on the West Coast. What were those years like for you?
I came out of Vietnam. I was 21. And my dream, my father sent me to L.A. to be a staff drummer, because a studio drummer, because that's something he always wanted to be. I kind of lived that dream for him. So I was doing a lot of studio work out in L.A. So Eddie Cotton, a bass player, had just left Max Roach, and he came to town because his mother had gotten sick. So I met Eddie Kahn, and I told him if he would switch to electric bass, I could turn him on to some sessions, which he did. So his friend was Coleridge Perkerson, that was the piano player with Mac's band when he was with Mac. So Coleridge Perkerson got the contract. He was the MD for the Barbara McNair TV show.
Yeah.
So Coleridge was living in New York writing all of the music. So he made Eddie Kahn the contractor.
Yeah.
So Eddie Kahn hired me as the drummer.
Yeah.
So Coleridge would fly to L.A. from New York on Tuesday, and we would rehearse the big band on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we would record the show on Thursday, and he would fly out on the Red Eye that Thursday night. I thought that was so cool, man.
Yeah.
I thought that, I mean, he's like, yeah, and I'm catching a midnight flight from L.A. back to New York. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This guy's crazy. You know, and plus he had worked with Max Roach. You know, so that's how that got started. Okay. So then I was working with a group called Retta Hughes and Tennyson Stevenson out of Chicago.
Yeah.
So somebody heard me, and they had Motown to get in touch with me. So Motown called me and asked me if I would come to Detroit to audition for the drum seat. So I said, well, yeah. So I went to Detroit. I was a great sight reader. I still am. And I sat down and I sight read the book. But I've worked so hard on my hands. I've always wanted to have fast hands, which I have now, and I've always had. So when I first got there, Harvey Fuqua, that is the MD, that was the MD there. Harvey said, look, man, that's great. I mean, I can tell that you've really worked hard to develop your technique, and you have great technique. He said, but we don't need that here.
Yeah.
What we need here is for you to sit in this pocket.
Yeah.
Now, let's try it again, and we just need you to sit in this pocket. See, because all Motown drum fills are two beats that start on the and of three, and it ends on the downbeat of one. It's 1, 2, 3, da da da.
Yeah.
That's it. And that is so beautiful because it's more musical, and it keeps the music from rushing. You will never hear a Motown song where a drummer plays do 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 boom, doom doom, because that's a possibility that can rush. So they'll say 1, 2, 3, ba ba da 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 da. So I learned a lot there, man. I learned how to play where the music is energetic, but the tempo doesn't move. How to move the feeling from quarter notes to eighth notes to 16th notes to create the illusion of speed, but it's not moving, it's standing still.
Yeah.
And that's how that came about. And I stayed with them until they moved to L.A. And when they moved to L.A., I moved to San Francisco. And I lived in San Francisco for 2 years. I moved to San Francisco to prepare to come to New York because I'd never lived in a city. Houston and LA is the same thing. It just doesn't have oil. But as full as steers and horses, it's in heat and sand, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And Houston doesn't have mountains. That's the only difference. So I moved to San Francisco and I just moved there to practice. I had chosen the band that I was going to join. Eddie Kahn had told me, he said, well, look, man, if you're going to go to New York, go there with a band that's hot and force everybody to come to meet you. He said, just don't go to New York because it'll take you too long to meet everybody. I said, okay, Eddie. And Eddie taught me how to play fast because I couldn't play fast because I never played fast. And he had worked with Max Roach. So I said, well, Eddie, teach me how to play fast because I don't know how to play fast. And by him being a bass player, it's easy to learn how to play fast because he's not going to slow down for me. So I taught him funk, and he taught me speed, playing jazz, those up tempos. I moved to San Francisco, and I said, well, I'm just going to work on it. So Freddie Hubbard had just released Red Clay.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I said, I can play that. I say, I've been playing that since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and I say, as a matter of fact, I can play it better than the drummer that's playing it, because Lenny had never played R&B. He was a jazz drummer trying to play R&B, so therefore he had a thin sound. No disrespect to the great drummer Lenny White, but jazz drumming is a thin sound. R&B drumming is a thicker sound. I'm not talking volume, I'm talking sound.
Yeah.
So that encouraged me. I said, well, they aren't playing as fast as I thought. You know, and so it was that book, Red Clay, Intrepid Fox, that book.
Yeah.
So Freddie was hot as a firecracker. I'd say, there's my ticket to New York. So every time Freddie would come to the Both And, that was a jazz club in San Francisco before the Keystone Corner opened. It was called the Both And. It was owned by Delano Dean. And what I did, I lived right around the corner from it. So Delano Dean had a great jazz catalog. So one day I came around there and I could see through the window. He was cleaning up, so I knocked on the door and he opened the door. And I say, Delano, I want to go to New York and I don't have a jazz vocabulary. You have all of these artists that I'd never heard of, like I'd never heard of Gratian Moncourt III. That great record, Evolution, with that tune on it, The Coaster, great composition. So Delano said, well, yeah, man, you can come around. I said, well, look, I'll clean your club for free if you just play let me listen, because he had a great sound system. And I said, if you would just pick groups that I haven't heard, because I had heard of the main guys, but I wanted to know the other people that I would encounter in New York that I could possibly work with, you know. So I would come in there and I would empty the ashtrays and clean the glasses and sweep the floor and wash the glasses and set up the club. And he appreciated that, but I appreciated him, and that's how I built my jazz vocabulary. So he said, well, look, man, he said, why don't you work with Bobby Hutcherson? I said, well, I don't really want no gig, because my rent was $75 a month. I sold my car because I was living in the city. And I just wanted to practice and focus on joining Freddie. So I transcribed the whole record, and I had the book together. So Delano Dean said, well, look, man, Bobby is working in here next week, and he don't have a drummer. Play the gig with him for me. I say, okay, Delano. So I played with Bobby. I fell in love with him. So shortly after that, Delano said, look, man, you need to be heard. He said, if I can bring a guy in for the New Year's Eve gig with you and Bobby Hutcherson, who would you want to play with? I said, oh, man, bring Jacquet McLean. Because I'd heard Jacquet McLean on that Gratian Moncourt, the third record. And so he said, Jacquet? I said, yeah. He said, okay. So he worked the deal out, so he brought Jacquet. Now, I was lucky because that same weekend, that New Year's Eve weekend, Herbie was at the Ice Palace in San Francisco with the NYDC band, and Freddie was at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco with the Red Clay band. So we went from 10 to 4. They just played their little hour concerts and came on over to hang out with Bobby, because Bobby had made a lot of records with Herbie and Freddie. And I didn't realize that connection, but Delano did. So Herbie and Freddie set in. So I'm playing, and I said, okay. And I didn't say nothing to Freddie because I didn't feel it was the right time. And Jacquet was in the band. So Jacquet told me, he said, look, man, if you ever come to New York, here's my phone number. Call me. You got the gig. I told Jacquet, thank you, man. Jacquet wasn't as hot as Freddie. I needed somebody hot so everybody would come to meet me. So I worked out the deal, and I got the gig with Freddie, and I moved to New York in 1973. He flew me in from San Francisco. I got off the plane. I went right into the Vanguard, and that was that.
So you get to New York City, and you start playing with Dizzy Gillespie. You got Dexter Gordon, Hank Jones, Hampton Hawes. The list goes on and on. And you're a teacher. What did these experiences being around these kinds of cats teach you about just not only music but life? How did that flow? You were in such a creative cradle of jazz. What was that like?
I was never hired I chose every band that I played with. I wasn't a drummer for hire. I have never been a drummer for hire. I came from a band leader, father. And my father taught me, he'd say, Michael, play with guys that are going to allow you to grow in the style that you want to grow in. That's why I chose to work with certain guys. Now, the reason why I chose Freddie, that was to kick it in. Okay? The reason why I chose Jacquet McLean is because Jacquet built young drummers. Whoever worked with Jacquet in New York is the next guy. Okay?
Yeah.
Jacquet McLean built young drummers. I came to New York with that California experience. So when Jacquet called me, I'm there and I'm saying, yes, sir, Jacquet, let me have your book. Jacquet say, what book? You know, I'm coming with that LA thing.
Yeah.
He said, it did. We playing, and I said, well, Jacquet, what you want me to play on this tune? He said, look, man, stop bothering me. You the drummer, play the drums, man. Why you keep bothering me? You know, but no, that's what Jacquet told me.
Yeah.
He said, stop bothering me, man, and play the drums. See, because Al Foster came through Jacquet.
Yeah.
Jack DeJohnette came through Jacquet. Tony Williams came through Jacquet. Lenny White came through Jacquet. Michael Carvin came through Jacquet.
Yeah.
See, because Jacquet is the first band leader I've ever worked with that allowed me to get me. You go figure you out, and you can do it on my bandstand every night.
Yeah.
But that's what Art Blakey did for him.
Yeah.
Because Jacquet came from a drummer.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to work with Jacquet, because he understood the drums.
Yeah.
And he forced me to be me. And he encouraged me to be me. So when I left Jacquet, I said, well, now I want to get to Pharoah. Because I wanted to feel what Train felt like. Train died when I was in Vietnam, and I was just crazy about Train. I wanted to feel what Train felt like, or get some kind of idea of what he felt like. So I joined Pharoah's band. And what I learned from Pharoah was how to be at peace with what I am and what I think my music is about, and not what somebody else thinks it's about. What I think my music is about. And that was the one lesson from Pharoah. I saved Dizzy for last because I say after I work with Dizzy, I'm not going to be a side man again. I joined Dizzy's band when I was 40. I haven't been a side man since I was 40. And the only thing I wanted from Dizzy, I wanted to play with a guy that invented a style of music that influenced the language of that type of music around the world. I wanted to play with an innovator.
Yeah.
And to play with, and none of these guys talk, mind you. None of them. No rehearsal, man. No rehearsal. You say you want to play with me, that means one thing. You know my book. Because I have nothing to say to you about that. So Dizzy, I waited until, see, that was something I always wanted to tell Dizzy, and ever since I was about 25, around there. And after I'd been in the band for about 6 months and I got to know him, one night the opportunity happened. So we were in Munich, Germany, working at the Dummerfeld Jazz Club in Munich. This was 1979. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and Dizzy knocked on my door, and I opened up the door, and he wanted to talk about Chana Pozo. And when these guys come and they want to talk, you just sit down and listen, regardless what time it is or what you do. It's not about what you do. It's what they want to do. So he sat down and I let him solo, man, and he talked about Chana Pozo and how Chana Pozo influenced him in Cuba and how he brought, mixed or heard this concept to mix the Cuban with the bebop and all of that. And I said, well, John, I call him John Burks Gillespie. I said, well, John, now that we are talking about Chanapozo in Cuba, I said, I have something that I've always wanted to tell you, and I hope you don't take it the wrong way. And he said, well, say it. I said, you've never played a night in Tunisia. He said, what? I say, John, you've never played a night in Tunisia. I say, you played a night in Cuba. Because the 6-day clave that Chanapozo is playing in Tunisia, in night in Tunisia, is not the 6-day clave of Tunisia. That's the clave of Cuba.
Yeah.
And as a drummer, you have to be careful with what kind of language you be using if it's not matching the proper language of the drumming world.
Yeah.
So once I said that, his ears was like elephant ears. He said, okay. So I sang to him the rhythm of Tunisia as the drummers would play. And it elongates the melody. See, because the Cuban music is very quick, not fast, quick. Why? Because that's the same way they dance.
Yeah.
The African beats are more relaxed and subtle because that's the way that they dance.
Yeah.
So the African rhythm is more like so I elongated. I made it a 2-bar phrase, and then the melody starts. So it'll be and instead of ding 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 diggity diggity ding 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 diggity ding, that's the Cuban 6. Ding 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 diggity bang bang bang. So it's nervous. That's why they play la 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 la. But we play ba ba boo day boo back at the boo to back at the papa to google to papa to ba do da to back at the do. Do you have that? Well, I'll send you my latest CD if you don't have it, because that arrangement on Night in Tunisia is the one that Dizzy played from the time I showed him that. Oh no, I didn't show him anything. From the time we discussed that,
yeah,
until the day he died, that was the arrangement. I just wanted to correct that language. We discussed that. I didn't show him anything.
Yeah.
And I was very proud. And that's the way every time I played Night in Tunisia, I play it that way, because it is Tunisia. And then you can really hear how beautiful the melody is. But the tempo is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 when it gets to the swing part.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. You've been on over 250 albums. You've been very prolific in your long jazz career. Has there been an award that you got that just kind of surprised you, that was just kind of like, wow, that's cool? Not that it was any better than any others, but a recognition where you thought, man, that's something else.
No.
No.
I haven't reached that level yet.
Yeah.
And I hope I don't.
Yeah.
Because then it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
man.
Let me switch gears here a little bit. As a teacher, you teach in the great Matt Cain, and you're a great teacher. What's your philosophy? What do you try to teach your students?
How to discover themselves, to respect and own your own fingerprint. This is what I tell them. I say, look, guys, here's a theory that I believe in. I don't know if you believe in it or not, but I believe in it. And the theory is this. The FBI can lift your fingerprint off a glass sitting on the counter on a bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can track you down anywhere on the face of this earth, right?
Yeah.
So if you buy into that, which I buy into it 1,000%, then that means you special. That means you're so special that nobody else on the face of this earth has your fingerprint. So from this day on, live your life that way.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach them. Because that's the way I live my life. I'm very special. I live inside of my mother, so did you and all of us other humans. And our fingerprints is not the same as our mom's, Joe. Come on, man, something happening.
Yeah.
Joe, something is going on, man.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
Something is going on, man. So let's buy into that.
Yeah.
Let's become our fingerprint. Let's honor that. And let's govern ourselves accordingly to that.
Yeah.
And you will excel. Because now we ain't trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
We ain't trying to look like nobody else. We ain't trying to speak like nobody else. We ain't trying to play like nobody else. We ain't trying to act like nobody else. Because we are special ourselves.
Yeah.
We are the special chosen one because nobody else have our fingerprint.
Yep. That everybody in this life has an influence on you. You've had countless influences. If you look back over your life, it's very, very rich and full of music. Who has taught you the most?
My father.
Yeah.
He taught me the greatest lesson. When your time come, do it, not until. He taught me the greatest lesson that I could ever learn in life. You can't do it until you can do it, man. Relax.
Yeah.
Although I couldn't understand that from 6 years old to 12 years old with all them drums in the house, and I hated him. I hated him. I hated him. That was a hard lesson, man. I'm telling you, man. I hated my father until I won that first rudimental championship, and I realized I wasn't better than the other kids, but I realized what he had taught me. If you're going to do something, master it, study it, understand it inside out, be able to step forth and pull it off in front of total strangers and under the utmost pressure. Win. And that's the greatest lesson that I've ever learned in my life.
Yeah.
It's not about what I wanted to do. It was about what I couldn't do at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, man. So you played in a lot of sets. You've played in front of a lot of people. When you think back over all the gigs that you've played, is there a set of shows or a show where you're like, man, there was some level you went to that was nirvana? You just went there?
No, because not really. Because see, it can't be one. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You see what you're speaking about is when the magic stepped into music.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen all the time, like you and I know. And that has happened. Not with everybody, but with all of my musical marriages. Let's use that language. So my musical marriages was Jacquet, Pharoah, and Dizzy.
Yeah.
Now, in my musical marriages, yeah, man. But they were all different, though, so I can't say it was that night with Dizzy in the south of France. I can't say it was that night with Jacquet. I can't say it was that night with Pharoah in California at the Ash Grove when we recorded live. That record recorded live, Elevation. Were they all wonderful? Were there several nights when I would get back to the hotel room and I couldn't sleep for 3 days? Yes. But which one was the best? They were all the same because it was a beautiful awakening and reward for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that happened with my new band every now and then, and like with the guys in my band, well, the ladies and gentlemen, because I have Yayoi Kawa on piano and Jansen Cinco on bass and Keith Loftus on tenor, and like I always tell them, do not discuss music with me. Don't discuss music in the dressing room. I don't give a damn if it was good or bad. Don't discuss it. And if you want to discuss it among yourself, leave the dressing room. You can't do it in my presence. Because I don't discuss music, I play music. And sometimes they'll forget because we'll get lucky. You know, we finished the gig one night and Jansen looked at me on the bandstand. He said, Carvin, are you sure the set is over? I said, yeah, man. I looked at my watch. He said, man, it feels like we've been playing for 15 minutes. I said, what did I tell you? He said, yeah, but I said, what did I tell you? He said, okay, don't discuss it with me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to shut it down.
Yeah.
I believe that if we discuss it, we'll run it away. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is. I don't know why it happened when it happened. I'm just thankful it does, and that's that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because I don't want to know, Joe. I don't want a lot of information, man. I don't want it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't want it, man. I don't want to understand it. I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to. I don't want to. Whatever it is, I'm just thankful that it comes to me every now and then.
So let me ask you this. As a practitioner and an observer of something that we love in this country called jazz, why do you love jazz?
I just like it because it makes me feel good. It really makes me feel good, man.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me feel good. And it introduced me to a lot of wonderful and hilarious people. I'm talking about there. Jazz masters, all of them could do 60 minutes of stand-up, man.
Yeah.
No, man. They're some funny characters. No. They're some funny characters. Some of them don't know it, but they be funny, man. They be, you know, they'd be funny. I'm sitting and I'm hanging out with Dizzy, and sometimes we'll be talking about something, and all of a sudden Dizzy could just go to another space, you know, where he would just be like he would be like 5 or 6 years old, man. I mean, I can see it because I understand that space, you know, and it just be beautiful. It's not what he's saying or what he's doing. It's just that energy.
Yeah.
When they could make that humble shift where we might be thinking, oh yeah, but they all, you know, just like Jacquet loved ice cream, man, and like we was in Copenhagen because the ice cream there is very good. I don't eat sweets, but he said it's very good. And we were working on Antiquity when we was working on the duet record, and he said, oh, like a little one. He stopped playing. He said, oh, Michael, let's go get some ice cream, man. And I was like, okay. But what I heard, you scream, we scream, we all scream for ice cream. I mean, that's where my head went. I'm serious, Joe. I didn't say it, but that's where my head, because he became that guy.
Yeah.
He became that guy. I could hear I mean, he became that guy, man. And we went and got some ice cream, and he sat there and ate the shit, and he was like, wow, yeah. He said, Michael, you don't want any ice cream? I said, no. He said, okay. He said, well, do you want anything? I said, man, I'm just enjoying this. Because Jack McLean doesn't want ice cream. I mean, Jack McLean doesn't rush off from a rehearsal to have ice cream. Not Jack McLean and all this shit. He can play it. He was Bird protege. I mean, he doesn't need ice cream. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just beautiful, man, to, like, be privileged to experience that. And then when we would play, I could hear that guy when he played something. I could hear it.
Yeah.
And that's when I dubbed him the Scooter. I used to call him Scooter. He said, Carvin, he called me Carvin. He said, Carvin, why you call me Scooter? I said, because you're a little one. He said, yeah, I am. He said, you can see that, huh? I said, yeah. You're just a little guy on your scooter having fun, man. I mean, it's just having a D9 alto saxophone.
Yeah.
But you just on your little scooter running up the streets of New York with your friends.
Yeah.
And that's the way he played. That's why Jacquet played so happy all the time. I don't care what he played, just be happy and real, I'll use the language, frisky.
Yeah.
He has that frisky kind of, that's why I dug playing with him, because it was frisky. It was like real frisky.
Man, Michael, I think that's the perfect way to put our period on this interview, man. I appreciate you opening up your world. I got a great insight. I appreciate your time. It was beautiful, man.
Man, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Michael for opening up his world with Neon Jazz. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.